Hello again, it's Mike back from the official Zag blog, back with another video. Today we're doing an unboxing, hands-on and first impressions with the brand spanking new Sony Xperia Z1 Compact. This phone was announced last month at CES for Sony, and what they've done is kind of break the trend of these mini devices here. So with the HTC One and the HTC One Mini, the Samsung Galaxy S4 and Galaxy S4 Mini, typically you see manufacturers lower their specs, lower the specifications of the smaller devices to fit them in a smaller, more portable package. Sony went the opposite direction. They took the already great Xperia Z1, shrunk down its size, and kept all the great components, minus one, which we'll talk about here in a bit. So also in this video, we'll not only look at the Z1 Compact, but we'll compare it to the likes of its big brother, the Z1, as well as the entry from Apple, the 5S, so that you can kind of get a feel for the size of each, because that's why you would consider the Z1 Compact if the Z1 or another device is too large for you. I have smaller hands, so I think personally the Z1 Compact is going to be a better device for me. So this just came, UPS just dropped it off, and I haven't had a chance to get into it, but here we go. So I ordered the black model. I had the white Z1, and so I thought I'd change it up. We'll set this guy aside and come back in a minute. In the rest of the box, you get an included screen protector, which looks okay. You get, in my case, a European charger. Check out the plug on that. Obviously a micro USB cable to charge. They are going back to including earbuds and the earbud pads, different sizes for different folks' ears. And then also a cable, I believe this is this is micro USB to USB, full-size USB on this side. It's a female port. And then all the other paperwork that you'd expect, a startup guide, diagram of where to find the important ports. Pretty typical. So we'll pack all this back away for now. Luckily for me, I don't need this. I have plenty of micro USB chargers and cords for that matter. So let's set this all aside and get to the real fun, the device itself. There it is. It, as you could probably tell, it keeps a lot of the same industrial design language as the Z and the Z1 before it. They've moved a few things around though. On the original Z1, when you look at the left spine, you have your magnetic charging ports, you have SIM card and micro USB or micro SD card expansion port here. On the Z1 Compact, they've moved the ports around. I believe this one is your SIM card and this one is your micro SD card. Looking at the top, they've kept the headphone jack in the same place. And then on the right spine, on the Z1, this is your SIM card slot. And there is no port on the Z1 Compact, on the right spine anyway. They've kept the same power button placement, volume rockers, and dedicated camera button. And they've also kept on the bottom here the attachment for a lanyard if you want to attach a strap to it. On the bottom, same story, the speaker found here at the bottom. Some people like that, some people not so much. I haven't found it to be a problem with the way I hold my phone. And other phones, you know, the iPhone is a great example. The speaker is also on the bottom. So I'm perfectly fine with that. On the back, same story here, coming from the Z1 to the Z1 Compact. You've got your 20.7 megapixel camera at the top. They, on the Compact, relocated the flash to the right side of the lens as opposed to below it. A small minor change there. Everything else is the same on the outside. So that's that. Before we power this up, we'll do a size comparison real quick of the three devices and why you might consider each. Let's zoom in here. So the Z1 on the far left, the Z1 Compact in the middle, and the iPhone 5S on the right. Definitely, and we'll start with these two, there's definitely a noticeable size difference when you put the two together. The entire top bezel above the screen on the Z1 is extra space. The screen actually cuts off at the top of the Z1 Compact. On the right side, pretty similar story. The entire bezel on the right side of the screen here is gone on the Z1 Compact. As far as thickness goes between these two, the Z1 is 8.5 millimeters. The Z1 Compact, they went a little bit thicker. It's 9.5 millimeters thick. Not a noticeable difference in the hand between holding these two devices. 1 millimeter difference doesn't make a difference in the hand. So we'll set that one aside and we'll go to the iPhone 5S. And this is where things get a lot closer. I was using the Z1 for a while and found it to just be too large for my hands. I have, I guess you'd say, smaller hands, and I like to use one-hand operation. I like to text and do things with just my right thumb as opposed to having to hold it this way. And I found that's how I had to go about using the Z1 the most, was in more of that phablet type of form, which proved to be inconvenient. I ended up being drawn back to the iPhone size, not because I necessarily like the iPhone more. In fact, I like the Xperia more as a device, but this is just easier for me to use, whether it be reaching the top of the screen and dragging down, or reaching the far left keys on the keyboard. This size of device worked better for me. And so when the Z1 Compact was announced, that's why I was the most excited, because they're a lot closer. And if we line these up, you have maybe a millimeter or two of difference at the top, and probably equal amount here on the right side. The bigger difference between these two is on the thickness, how their depth. The iPhone is 7.6 millimeters, whereas again the Z1 Compact is 9.5. So you've got 2 millimeters of thickness difference here. Again, it is a little bit more noticeable in the hand when you hold the two devices, but nothing that's going to be a deal breaker as far as that 9.5 millimeters here. So iPhone 5S, Z1 Compact side by side, a lot more similar. The iPhone 5S with a 4-inch screen, the Z1 Compact with a 4.3-inch screen. So that's that. We'll go ahead and set these two guys aside and get to the fun part. We'll fire this up for the first time. I use T-Mobile here in the United States. This phone did come from Europe, but T-Mobile's 4G LTE bands are supported. For this particular device, it is the D5503 model. So if you're planning, or if you're considering doing the same thing, having one brought over or buying one from a company here in the US who imports them, the D5503 model is the one that will support T-Mobile and AT&T LTE bands. And so here we go. Let's see, it's still set to English for the United Kingdom. We'll change that to US. The Z1, when I had it brought over, it was in Chinese, and that was different. It took a little bit to get that in the right language. So it wants the SIM card inserted, and then we'll need to restart the phone. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, after some finagling, I finally got the micro SIM card and SIM tray back in the phone. It just finished restarting itself, and we'll confirm. And this is one of the nice things. It'll ask you if you want to download the internet settings, the APN settings, directly from your provider. In my case, I'm using T-Mobile, so I'll select that, and we'll let it do its thing. That date and time's not right, but it should hopefully get that from the network. All ready to go. Already getting text messages, so it's at least registered on the network. We don't have data yet, mobile data. That should be available in just a minute. While we're waiting on that, we'll take a quick look around the phone. This is your home screen. You have 5 of them. The Xperia Z1 Compact ships with Android 4.3, whereas the Z1 came with 4.2. No idea yet on when we'll see 4.4 KitKat, but Sony's done a pretty good job of staying on top of that, so I think it'll be something that we could expect in the near future. So we've got 3G, HSPA Plus mobile service already. It's kind of flickering on and off. I think it's still installing those settings. There we go. Now it's installed. And there's HSPA Plus. Here in my house, I don't get LTE from T-Mobile, so I wouldn't be able to show you what that looks like. But it does work. So if you pinch out or pinch in on the display on the home screen, you get this 3D rotating carousel where you can add and remove home screens. You can add widgets, apps, wallpapers, change your theme, and then go back. Here's a quick look at the app drawer. This is Sony's own implementation of Android, their skin over it. It's not terrible. It's not bad. There are plenty that are worse. They have this tray over here. If you pull out from the left-hand bezel, you can choose the order in which you show the apps in the tray and then scroll through them. Even though this isn't a carrier-attached phone, it still comes loaded up with a decent amount of bloatware and extra apps that I'm not going to use, but those can be removed. One of the big highlight features for the Z1 and the Z1 Compact is its camera and some of the camera functionality, the software that sits over top of it. So we'll take a quick look at that interface. I've still got the cover on the back, but dedicated camera button. And then clicking here will take you into your different modes. Leave it in Superior Auto will produce, even though the camera is capable of 20 megapixel photos, it'll produce an oversampled 8 megapixel photo that will try to choose the scene and the mode to take the best picture so you don't have to think about it. You can switch into manual mode. This is where you get full 20 megapixel photos and you do have more advanced control. Here's white balance, for example. You can choose what's the appropriate white balance. You have different scene selections depending on what you're wanting to do or the type of photo you're trying to take. And then you have additional options in here. You can choose the different resolutions, and it does go up to 20.7 on the high side. And then to toggle the video, tap this switch here, and the Z1 Compact shoots 1080p video at 30 frames per second. So that's a quick look at the, well, let's look at one more thing on the camera, sorry. We'll go back into the mode. They do have the Info Eye, which is a software update to the Z1. You might already have that. Allows you to take a picture of something and Sony will go out and find what that is and tell you. Social Live is a streaming service that will allow you to stream live video to your Facebook newsfeed for your friends to watch. And then there are a few other modes in here. There's Panorama, Time Shift Burst. It'll take like a motion image as something like moves through your frame, and it'll also allow you to get the best photo if you're shooting action shots. Sorry. And so the camera does come with really nice expanded functionality, or you can always leave it in Superior Auto mode just to take the best shot every time. We'll come down to a quick look here. The About section, it does in fact have Android 4.3 right out of the box. It is the D5503 model, so if you're here in the US and you're bringing one in, that is the model that you'll want. There is a small update already for the Info Eye and the camera. That gives a little bit further explanation about it. If you take a photo of the Eiffel Tower, it'll pop up this card that gives information about the Eiffel Tower and tells you what it is. So no system updates just yet, as we talked about earlier. So that's it for today. That's the Sony Z1 Compact. Not available in the US, but it is available, or at least from a carrier, but you can purchase it. And I'll have a link in the description below of 2 companies that I use personally, where I got mine, as well as another company that I would recommend for unlocked devices that aren't for sale from US carriers. So that's it for now. I'll put in some time using the phone, get it personalized, get it set up with my my accounts, my information, and spend some time using it. I'll take some sample photos and videos. If there's anything specific you'd like to see, leave a comment below, or feel free to shout out on Twitter. I live on Twitter, it seems like, so I'll get your tweet, and if there's a question that you have or something you want to know, let me know, and I'm happy to help out. So that's it for today. Mike from Zagblog signing off. This has been an early hands-on unboxing of the Sony Xperia Z1 Compact. Take care.